he is Papa and Grandpa. Papa had a quiet demeanor, preferring to listen and observe rather than speak. He was like a mystery novel, a detective story. Getting to know him requires investigation, but those who knew him eventually discovered what lay within. To me, he embodied a sharp mind and a generous heart, emotionally resilient, yet vulnerable at times. He disliked trivial matter and preferred to conserve his mental energy for important issues. He liked keeping low profile, but didn't mind occasional recognition. He knew what he wanted and didn't want. As our father, he was not the type to take us fishing, playing sports, or constantly snap pictures of us. Uncle Ray and Uncle Robin took on those roles. However, we had plenty of wonderful experiences. While he spent a lot of time in his study, we were always welcome to barge in. And we never had to be quiet when Dad was studying. I must also mention that he was around and always available to us throughout our adult lives. Dad didn't like buying gifts, except for when he returned from overseas. Upon his homecoming, aside from different puzzles and brainy twists for my brothers and I, Mom and I would each receive a bottle of Chanel No. 5. Mom is a big one, and mine is smaller. Since shopping wasn't his thing, picking up Chanel No. 5 during his flight home was an easy solution. As a result, I had quite a collection of Chanel No. 5. And I would think of that and smile whenever I saw anything Chanel. Our home was filled with books. They were just for his scholarly pursuit. We had art books, a complete set of leather-bound gold-leaf Shakespeare and D.H. Lawrence. Books, students, and fellow scholars. Dad loved his students so much. Mom often joked that they were his first family, and we are his second. We enjoy seeing Dad engage with his students. Sometimes when I look at Dad, my heart broke a little. He skipped 2 grades, got into the best high school in Taiwan, and then the best university in Japan. He dreamed of being a career in government. Sadly, his bright future was crushed when Chiang Kai-shek nationalists took over Taiwan after the war. He burned his diary from youth just to protect himself. The nationalists want to eliminate young Taiwanese intellectuals that survived the terror of February 28, but was blacklisted. When the nationalists continued to pursue him, they went into hiding at Banqiao Lin Compound, just like they say before, the headquarters of nationalist intelligence, the spy headquarters. He was not captured because there was no one ever thought to look for him there. Dad survived, but he was never the same again. Another example of how smart he was. During World War II, Japan did not want to send their brightest young men to the front lines. They were sent to Manchuria to train instead. While there, he won the prestigious competition of war game, the strategic game, thus became the prime candidate to receive the silver watch from the Japanese emperor. Soon after, however, he was disqualified for oversleeping and failing to report for his sentinel duty, the Zaigang. Luckily for him, with Japan subsequently losing the war and Taiwan handed over to the Chinese nationalists that could have faced serious trouble if his award from the Japanese emperor had been discovered. I asked Dad if missing the sentinel duty was intentional. Dad didn't answer. His not answering spoke volumes. There are countless stories about them. However, I move on to what I admire the most about him: integrity. Before coming to U.S., Dad was finally in his prime, enjoying a good life in Taiwan, but he left it all behind and relocated to the U.S. Many assume he did so because it is hard to resist an invitation from Harvard. The truth, however, is he initially turned down Harvard's invitation. Later, he changed his mind due to pressure from the National Party to run for 立法委员. 立法院, the legislative yuan, is often referred as the parliament. The party has selected him as one of the few token Taiwanese for future high-ranking government positions. Unable to bring himself to participate in such an arrangement, he chose to flee to Harvard. Dad carved his own path based on his faith and principles. He was adaptive. He not only survived, but flourished. So, no tears for Papa. He had a good, long, healthy, and productive life. He had Mama, the woman equally intelligent, who was fully devoted to him. He had a brother just one phone call away. He had his children around him his entire life, and thanks to Peter, Dad was able to enjoy living independently till the very end. And he had you. Dad was loved, adored, and pampered. He was a very lucky man. So, Daddy, you are here. Sayonara. Thank you.
How would I describe Dad in under 3 minutes? It's a challenge. The best word that comes to mind is subtle. The dictionary defines subtle as a quality so delicate or imprecise as to be difficult to analyze, describe, or understand, as a subtle scent of jasmine in the night air, for example. Or something not immediately obvious or comprehensible, a subtle plot. Or the quality of being able to make use of indirect and sometimes clever methods to achieve an end, as in the subtle language of diplomacy. This was where Dad excelled. Dad was always a strategist, and as a strategist he used subtlety to great effect by getting others to consider what he had to say and not reject his views without due consideration. How did he do this? 3 ways. Number 1, he listened. He allowed himself the time to fully process what others said. He preferred to observe rather than to pass judgment. 2, he was sincere and impartial. He weighed all opinions and viewpoints before deciding on a course of action. He made all those involved party to the decision, even though they may have disagreed. 3, he had a perfect sense of timing. He used silence to great effect. He often held back from discussions, letting others make their points. But when he spoke, he took his time and spoke honestly and with authority, backed up by solid command of the factual information needed to support his conclusions and decisions. and when necessary, he acted decisively. His decisions were final. John Lai was respected by all who knew him for his knowledge, his discipline, and his wisdom. But it was the subtlety inherent in his character that helped guide him through many of life's difficult moments. We may have been mystified at times by his non-committal silence, but in the end, we all had to admit, Father knew best.
Next speaker, son Richard Lai.
阮爸爸活到100通岁，身体也一直真勇健，感觉伊若像会永远拢继续落去。但是伊的时间到了，安歇去伫天堂，甲妈妈做伴。Well, I always view him as calm and collected, a man of logic and reason. I realized during the time while staying with my parents at their Arlington house that he also possessed a depth of tenderness I hadn't never realized before. My mother had hearing difficulties, missing out on conversations and daily happenings. Each night, however, after the house settled into quiet darkness, my father would spend time with her in the dimly lit kitchen. Patiently, he would update my mother over the day's events, sharing ideas and carry on the conversation. Only until my mother dozed off. Only then would he retreat for his study. In his early 80s, was his first personal computer and encouraged him to start his own blog or wiki pages. But with help from many others, he surprised everyone by creating something even better, the LaiJohn.com. Though initially apprehensive about technology, he rose to the challenge. He created a methodology that allowed himself to navigate computers and interact with the internet. At his age of 102, we still learned together how to get better responses from the ChatGPT. That was my father, adaptable and ever evolving. Library science was his profession. It struck me one day that despite my seemingly different career, my father and I will essentially share the same field, just spanning across different eras using different tools. I'm really grateful for imparting to me the skill that I contribute to society. His self-determination, his constant pursuit of knowledge, his humility, and his unconditional love and support for his family. Serve as a model for my life, Dad. We will always miss you.
And grandson, Mr. Rod Lai.
Solomon said in Ecclesiastes 3, there's a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance. In remembering Akon, we celebrate a man full of wisdom and a lasting legacy that we're proud of as a family. As people have highlighted, his life was marked by lasting accomplishments, many which will carry on for generations. The East Asian language version of the Dewey Decimal System, archiving Christian history in Taiwan, and translating the Bible into modern common Taiwanese. I remember asking him, which of your accomplishments are you most proud of? He said, translating the Bible into Taiwanese. Shepherding a project into his 90s that he's the most proud of, to use my dad's words, remarkable. I'd like to share a few of the moments of weeping and laughing and dancing with you. While we often knew him as very stoic, there was only one time that I remember him nearly weeping. After the passing of my grandma, we were standing outside his bedroom at my parents' home, and he said how full of sorrow he was for how he couldn't have helped the mom exercise more and eat. He cared for her so well, and that was his one wish, his one regret. And after that, he transformed that for himself. He started walking miles a day, over a mile a day. He was proud of that and enjoyed that. Then last December, when I told him I was planning on getting engaged soon, he stood up and he did a little dance, kind of like that. And then he said he was ready to live to 115. That made me laugh. Then scratching his head, he quipped humorously, "It's quite strange that at 100, I don't have any grandkids, or great-grandchildren." He was always at peace, even in silence. But when the mood struck, he had some of the most fascinating stories that you could make a movie about. And he shared them with vivid detail like they happened yesterday. The things that he experienced through the last century are hard to fathom, but he painted a picture of what it was like through multiple occupying countries, world war, political asylum, moving around the world. I wish we could be gathered at the dinner table listening to one of his stories now. I'm sad my future children won't have a chance to meet him, but we'll tell her or him stories about their great-grandfather and pray that they inherit his memory, adaptable nature, way of thinking, peacefulness in the Lord. We're richer in character because of the man that John Lai was, and are fortunate for the path he behaved from Taiwan, Japan to the US. We miss him already, and mourn the loss of his presence here today in body, but know that he fought the good fight, finished the race, and kept the faith. Now we honor and cherish his memory in heaven alongside.
真欢喜嘛，真感谢。对啊。